Hello, I'm going to explain how we predict athletic performance using vibrational astrology. I'm going to use one particular game to illustrate the ideas. This is a tennis match in the year 2015 in which Serena Williams wins the Wimbledon tournament. There are four major tennis tournaments in a year. The third one in the year is called the Wimbledon. It takes place in London. And when we analyze athletic performance in a particular game, we want to know when the game begins, of course. It's nice to know when it ends, so we know the duration of the game and where it occurs. So I've got some quotes from websites here that this particular tennis match began at 2 p.m. Was the local time in London on July 11, 2015. It lasted 1 hour 23 minutes, which means it ended at 3:23 p.m. So in this case, we know exactly when the tennis match occurred. Sometimes when you're studying historical games, you may not be able to get the exact beginning time and ending time. In this case, we're fortunate to have it because it's a recent event. Another thing is, you want to make sure the game is important. Well, almost always games are important. There may be some exceptions. Suppose, for example, it's near the end of the year, in a season, the end of a season, and a particular team has already finished in first place, but they have a few more games to play. The game may not be as important. They may not be playing up to their best for those reasons. So it's good to be aware that everyone is playing up to capacity, so to speak. And certainly, of course, this game meets that criterion. And just as a point of interest, this game had a lot of attention because Serena Williams won the third tournament in a row, and if she wins the fourth and last one of the year, it's called a calendar year Grand Slam, which has not been achieved since 1988 when Steffi Graf did it. Anyway, interesting game. Very significant for tennis fans. Okay, so how do we predict athletic performance at a particular game? Using vibrational astrology, the concept is very straightforward. There are two steps to it. The first thing we do is we find the planetary pattern that indicates the potential for exceptional athletic ability. So the person has exceptional athletic ability if you're studying a professional sport anyway. Obviously they have exceptional ability because they made it to the professional level. So we want to find out what the pattern is. What will the pattern look like? What are we looking for? The theory we've developed over the last few years in the research that we've been doing, a group of us have been researching athletic performance, and the theory we have so far is that we have what we call the 7 power planets. These are the 7 planets that are important for athletes: Sun, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. That's everything except Moon, Venus, and Neptune. When 3 or more of those planets combine together in aspects or midpoint structures in one of the following harmonics, we have the potential to be a great athlete. Those harmonics are 8, 7, 56, 35, 63, and 77. That may seem like an arbitrary list of numbers, but except for 8, these are all based on the number 7. We have the 7th harmonic, 7 times 8, 7 times 5, 7 times 9, and 7 times 11. And the particular harmonics that get involved and the particular planets that are involved depends on the sport. Certain sports are more, the athletes in certain sports are likely to have certain planets and certain of these harmonics, and also the style that the particular person has. What their particular strengths are and their style of play will be indicated by which planets and which harmonics are involved. But it should be evident in one or more of these harmonic patterns. Okay, so we find out what planetary configuration gives the potential for outstanding athletic ability. Second step is that when transiting planets, in other words, the planets at the time of the game, activate the pattern, the athletic performance is better. And I will illustrate this, showing you the planetary patterns in the birth chart of Serena Williams and how they got triggered at the time of this Wimbledon Championship game. Also, by the way, note, we do not yet have a model for directly predicting winners. What we're doing with this model is we're predicting the athletic performance. If you have a game and the two players are similar in skill, and one of the players has more of these helpful transits at the time of the game than the other player, the one with the more helpful transits is expected to win. I will show you an example of what we mean by helpful transits in just a few slides. We'll get to this. Now, another preliminary note before I start showing you Serena Williams' birth chart and what was going on at the time of this game is I want to just mention that what I'm going to do is illustrate the model. From a scientific point of view, this model is in the early stages of development. And as I mentioned before, some fellow researchers and myself are conducting research on on these two things. What are the astrological indicators of athletic ability, and what predicts athletic performance? And our research so far shows that they're related. In fact, before we predict performance, we want to first see what the indicators of the athletic ability are. And this research is ongoing. We're still in the early stages of it. It's a lot of work involved. Analyzing the charts of these athletes and seeing what's going on at the time that they perform well and they don't perform as well. And it's evolving into being a rigorous quantitative study. We're not there yet. We haven't crunched all the numbers and refined the formulas. We're still refining the model. But eventually we'll develop a forecast astrosignature in the Sirius software that will predict performance. We're focusing on baseball players, but the principles seem to apply pretty well to some other sports, and I'll show it in this case in tennis. And we'll eventually test this with quantitative research studies. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing you a model that works very, very well so far, and we'll be doing more research to more rigorously test it. In vibrational astrology, we test things and evaluate ideas much more rigorously than is usually done in astrology. So we just wanted to tell you the stage that we're in with this research. Now, Serena, what gives her the potential to be such a fantastic tennis player? It shows up in her 8th harmonic and her 7th harmonic chart. She does not have a strong 35th harmonic chart. A lot of athletes do. The 35th is inclined to have more fun playing the game, and she has a reputation for being fierce on the court. Doesn't look like she's having as much fun as some other players do, which makes sense because we see the emphasis in her chart on the 8, which is motivation and drive, and the 7, which is the focus and discipline. And she's driven and focused, and she just goes to work, you might say. So anyway, those are the two harmonic charts that stand out, and I'll show you the patterns. Here's her 8th harmonic chart. In her 8th harmonic chart, she has Saturn at 3 degrees Cancer, Mars at 4 degrees Aries, a very strong Mars square Saturn aspect, and she has Uranus and Pluto at 7 degrees Cancer and Libra, a very strong Uranus-Pluto square. So Mars and Saturn at 3 degrees, Uranus and Pluto at 7 degrees, and they're all within orb of making a T-square. So she has a Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto T-square. Venus is also involved. Now Venus we don't consider to be important for athletic performance, but the other 4 planets are 4 of the 7 power planets in a T-square. There you have it. Very, very strong indications of Mars, Saturn, hard work, focus, sacrifice, do what needs to be done to play well. And her style of play is very much that way. She's known for playing mostly in the backcourt. She does come up to the front once in a while, but steady, consistent, not a lot of fancy theatrics going on. She just does what needs to be done. Mars, Saturn, persistence, hard work, and she has explosive power. And also you'll see these dashed lines from the Sun going to Uranus and Pluto. And these are important too. So she actually has 5 planets getting involved in this pattern. And part of it is the Sun, Uranus, Pluto, indicating explosive power. The fact it's dashed means it's 16th harmonic in this chart. In the natal chart, it's actually 128th harmonic. If you're not familiar with all this harmonic theory, I have other videos that explain how to interpret harmonic charts. But this is a very high, we call octave harmonic. Basically, you take the number 1 and you double. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Very internal. Doesn't mean it's weak. It means it's an inner talent. She has explosive capability. That power serve, for example. Now, we're hoping she's got some discipline to be a great athlete, and she must, since she is a great athlete. But this shows the hard work, but highly explosive. We'll see the 7th harmonic is going to give her some of the focus, concentration, and control to be as exceptional of an athlete as she is. Because with this pattern, she wouldn't have quite enough control. Even the Mars-Saturn, not likely to give enough control and discipline to be the #1 tennis player in the world at this point in her career, and right up near the top for most of her career. So there it is, explosive power, and that's what we think of with Serena Williams. Now here's her 7th harmonic, and she has a T-square here of Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter, and Pluto is at the midpoint of Mercury and Jupiter, making these semi-squares. So a Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Pluto, those are 4 of the 7 power planets. Notice it's not Mars, it's not Uranus, it's the most inner planet is Mercury, showing her that she's smart. She sees ahead. This gives her the ability to have the reflexes to see where to place the ball in the next shot, which is a big part of tennis. I mean, you take it for granted after the player hits this great shot in the corner and their opponent is moving to the other corner or whatever it is. But those reflexes and that ability to see ahead, Mercury, Jupiter, to know where to play the ball, this is going to give her that ability. Also indicates that she's a thoughtful person. And I'm going to show you a part of a video, an interview with the interviewer Tavis Smiley. I'm going to play this a little over half a minute where she talks about this. But before I play the video, one more thing before I forget. Look at her Mars and Uranus. They're within about 8.5 degrees. We allow a 16-degree orb for conjunctions in a harmonic chart. Mars and Uranus, the 2 explosive planets, conjunct in the 7th is going to help give control over the power. That really, really helps her succeed. Okay, I have somewhere here, just give me a second. I'm going to show you, I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's play this video here, and I hope you can hear it, where for about a half a minute she's being interviewed by Tavis Smiley. That's Serena Williams. And he's going to ask her what her plans are post-tennis, because this is an interview in the year 2009. Well, 6 years later she's still playing tennis, but of course at some point she's going to stop, and he asks her what her plans are after her tennis career.
And I'll come back. And what do you want to do post-tennis when that day comes?
Well, I love fashion design. I love writing. Actually, recently I've gotten into writing, which includes this book that I just came out with, On the Line. And, I'm really artsy, so I like a little bit of everything that has to do with things like art.
Yeah. Speaking of writing, there's a great picture in the book of you and Venus years ago reading, and you make the point in the book that when you get a chance between matches and rainouts and practices, you actually like to read a lot.
Yeah, I love reading. I read all the time. Venus and I used to have this book club where we would read just tons of books and we would pass it along. It was only like it was a 3-person book club because at the time my physiotherapist was in it too. So we passed the books amongst ourselves. We're a little, you wouldn't think it, but we're a little geeky.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so that I think is very true. I think Serena Williams is telling us honestly about her. Here we go. Pulling up my slides again. Telling us a lot about her, what she's really all about. And she's talking about this Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Pluto, seventh harmonic pattern is how we see this astrologically. Also, let me mention this. I think going back to the eighth harmonic, let's talk about this eighth harmonic. There's one thing I forgot to mention. As you remember, I said she's got this Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto T-square, and the Sun involved with Uranus, Pluto. But notice there's another planet involved, Venus, which I did mention. We don't consider that to be important in athletics, but it is there. And Venus, Mars, Uranus, Pluto is the kind of thing you often see in movie stars. It can be very romantic, very sexy. Venus, Mars, Uranus, Pluto. So that's surprising. So does that come out in her life? And it does. Not surprisingly, she's been photographed wearing a bikini, etc. And I'll show you some of those pictures quickly just to give you an idea. There's one picture of her in a magazine. Wait, should I drag? Well, trying to drag that down. Anyway, you can see that pretty well. Here's another one of her on the cover of a magazine. Here's another one where she's nude, and here's another one. So this is not surprising. This is pretty much what we would expect with the Venus, Mars, Uranus, Pluto in the eighth harmonic. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I don't think it's important for the athletic performance, but it is part of the pattern and works into things a little bit. Okay. Now, the next step is now we've identified what's in her chart. Does it get activated at the time of the championship? I ran this. This is a bi-wheel with, I've got here underscored in red, Serena Williams' eighth harmonic chart in the inner ring, and at 3 p.m., this is an hour into a game that's an hour and 23 minutes long, so it's kind of towards the end of the game, but not right at the end of the game, to catch, pretty close to the middle, a little more than halfway through the game, the transits. And they won't move a whole lot in that short amount of time anyway. So there's the transits on the outside. So here's that Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto T-square. Does it get activated by transits? Transiting Mars is very tightly conjunct Saturn and square Mars. And you'll often see these same planet to same planet. Mars aspecting Mars, and the Sun over here at 1 degree Virgo is trine her Sun in the eighth harmonic chart, 0 Taurus. So a very tight trine. So we have Sun, transiting Sun trine the natal Sun, transiting Mars square the natal Mars, and transiting Mars is also conjunct the natal Saturn, triggering this T-square. So she's got one of the power planets activating the T-square, another one coming in and trining the Sun. And remember that Sun does aspect Uranus and Pluto at a high harmonic, so it's involved as well. So same planet to same planet. The transiting Sun and Mars, and this is in the eighth harmonic chart, are sextiled, and they're both activating important planets in her chart. So she's got some very favorable things. Now, it would be nice to look at what was going on in the chart of her opponent. Unfortunately, we don't have an accurate birth time yet for her opponent. And if we had it, we could compare. But this is to illustrate the ideas. We do see her natal chart getting triggered in ways that we would expect in a very big game, and she wins the championship, and very very strong performance. She came out on top. Now here's the comparison of the seventh harmonic charts. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to take the harmonic chart of the person and the harmonic chart at the time of the game. So again, we're doing it for 3 p.m. And here's the comparison of the 7th harmonic charts. Remember I mentioned in her 7th harmonic chart she has that T-square, which helps her think ahead. Actually, it's 4 planets. It's a Sun, Mercury, Jupiter T-square with Pluto also involved. And there's transiting Mars on Pluto. Now with transits, I like the orbs to be half as big at most as we usually use. So instead of a 16-degree orb, the orb should really be within 8 degrees at most, and this is within about 5.5. So it's close enough. But notice this. This is really even more perfect. Mars is conjunct Pluto. Transiting Mars is conjunct the natal Pluto, and exactly trine the natal Mars. Very, within less than a degree orb. It's just fantastic. Again, same planet to same planet. So this is a little interesting and may sound strange, but transiting Mars was in the perfect place to simultaneously, to go back to the 8th harmonic chart, it simultaneously squares Mars, approaching a square to Mars in the 8th harmonic, and back here at the 7th harmonic, it's just beginning to leave the trine to natal Mars. So we've got Mars to Mars in both harmonics. So that Mars was beautifully positioned to trigger the natal Mars in both important harmonics. And also, there's a transiting Mars-Saturn trine in the sky, transiting Saturn at 20 Scorpio, transiting Mars at 19 Pisces. Again, these are the positions in the 7th harmonic chart, not in the natal chart. And so we've got that Saturn right on on her natal Mars, Mars trine the natal Mars. So again, a nice activation there of power planets to important power planets in the natal chart that give her the ability. So that's how we do it. We find the pattern in the natal chart, and then we see how it gets triggered. Now, all of these, you might say fancy harmonics, might sound all very complicated and very abstract and very different from what we're used to in astrology. But what we're doing here with vibrational astrology is opening a whole new world of ideas that basically has barely been touched on before. Let me just refresh this screen a little bit. There. Give a little nicer background there. I had a odd-looking background from a website there, just to make that a little prettier. Okay, getting back to what I'm saying. This may sound a little far-fetched to a lot of astrologers, that this could be, number one, what makes Serena Williams a fantastic not the world's best female tennis player at this throughout a lot of her career, and what it triggers her better performance. What astrological variables will improve her performance. It may sound unbelievable, but I believe that there's a beautiful, intricate, wondrous tapestry of energies going on, and the astrology we use now just barely senses it. It just picks up a few of the major threads, you might say. And here we see the intricacy of these beautiful, wondrous patterns that go on. Now, just to show you, here's the comparison of the two natal charts, just to see what it looks like. And if we look at, for example, natal Mars, so in her birth chart, Mars is at 15 Leo, transiting Mars is at 11 degrees Cancer. That transiting Mars to natal Mars doesn't look like anything interesting. But when you look at the harmonic charts, to see the intricate patterns going on, we saw that this transiting Mars is actually activating the natal Mars in both the 7th and 8th harmonic charts, the two charts that are very, very important for her athletic performance. So what we're seeing with vibrational astrology is a whole new language of astrology, where we're seeing this beautiful tapestry of energies. It may sound unbelievable, it may sound incredible. Some people are skeptical of it, but as Richard Feynman, the physicist, said, we don't get to decide what Mother Nature is. She is what she is, and to me, it's very exciting that the flow of these of energies, if you want to think of it that way, or this patterning of life is so delicate and refined and intricate. I think it's exciting. I think it's wondrous, and also shows the potential for astrology to move way beyond what we thought astrology could do. So it's very, very exciting, and you can see, for example, some of the things that we often pick up in astrology. Transiting Mars at 11 Cancer is square natal Saturn at 11 Libra, and it's very tightly square. Now that's usually not considered to be good, to have squares between Mars and Saturn, but her performance was outstanding. And the reason why I believe that this square aspect ends up being so good is because it's part of those patterns that we just looked at in the 7th and 8th harmonic charts. I think that's my last slide. Yes, it is. So that gives you an understanding of how we predict athletic performance using vibrational astrology. And as I mentioned before, the research is ongoing. We're very excited about it. Those of us conducting the research, we're all busy with our regular lives, so none of us can dedicate, our weekdays to doing research. But each one of us, when we can, on weekends and some evenings, get back to the research and keep working on it. And the more we explore, the more exciting it looks. It looks like we're well on our way to having a tool that can be used reliably by athletic teams, for example. So very exciting. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.